Welcome today to Railroad Design and Track Planning. Now we've discussed the interchange track, and we discussed how the interchange track is going to have the cars delivered to it from the outside world, and they be ready to go to all the different spots on your layout, or a section of your layout if it's linear. But also, if you have an industry that doesn't necessarily need to have a warehouse, we could have a team track where multiple customers can come to an open track and pull their goods off of cars spotted at this team track. And it's always worth having in these smaller towns that could share the cost and just go when their cars are delivered and pull off the team track right out, kind of right out in the parking lot type of thing, where they can pull their truck right up to the train and transfer their goods. So team track is always nice, because the thing that's interesting thing about this team track is you can have any customer you want, and you can deliver different types of freight cars there. Um, it doesn't matter whether it's what the commodity is but it's typically going to be box cars for sure. Well, another way we can represent the outside world, if we don't necessarily have a room to physically put a realistic yard in, is to put in a hidden staging yard. This would be a series of long tracks that are hidden behind the mountain, and we could have a lot of rolling stock that could be presented anytime we need to the railroad, representing the outside world coming through. And so staging is can also be visible if you need, but adding a staging track could be in another room into your connecting railroad at your convenience, and it's another way for you to store all of the cars that you own and conveniently get them onto your layout when you need to, without having them all packed away in boxes somewhere and having to drag them out that way. Because certainly you'll probably have a lot more rolling stock than you'll have industry that can hold it all. So let's talk a little bit about operations. Because with operations, your model railroad becomes a challenge. Something that could bring satisfaction, other than just modeling something as a work of art, like a painting or a diorama, which brings satisfaction in its creation. A model railroad brings satisfaction in its creation, and then later in running it and having other people come over and operate your trains with you. Even if you do not intend to operate and get into switching and operations today, by designing and planning your railroad operations in mind, 2 or 3 years later or down the road, and you say, hey, I'm interested in model railroad operations, I'm going to have to throw my layout out and start over again. If you plan and do it now, whether you decide to do it later down the road, you're ready to go. So here is another principle. Model railroad satisfaction comes with maximum operational potential using the least amount of track. This is like 180 degrees opposite of what first comes to our mind, human nature. And when you look at track plans, it's what you look at is everybody trying to get the most amount of track jammed in to the allotted space. whether it's their basement or a spare bedroom. They're just going to jam in the most amount of track. That's not going to bring you satisfaction. It's actually just the opposite. So how do we get maximum operational potential? That really is the key. Decisions are based on the customers that can fit into the layout space, not the amount of track. How do we get the maximum potential, operational potential? Is to understand that any industry is not one car spot, but any industry could have multiple car spots. So it's the amount of car spots we're able to get into our layout that brings maximum operational potential, not the amount of track. The visual appeal of a railroad model stems from a generous amount of scenic space. Creating a visually believable scene by dedicating 1/3 of layout space to an area with no structures or spurs. Now, when I say no structures, you may have a small shed or something, but it's basically a scenery space, not an industry. It's those mundane details that grasp and capture the visitor and your eye. If everything you do is the most dramatic, the most fascinating models that you can purchase, ready built or whatever, and scenic only areas separate the scenes and make the model look larger. This is very important visually and for connecting one scene to another and making the compression of many miles believable. So hopefully you have enough now to get your mind thinking, to understand your customers, understand railroad operations and how they work, how cars are delivered to customers, how they go from town to town, and how scenery comes into play, and how to get all this into the space that you're allotted in your home, shed, attic, whatever, and begin to sketch out with pad and pencil. So hopefully that got you on your way to help you decide what you want and begin your model railroad hobby. Thanks for watching.